Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we have a City of Soledad Joint City Council Successor Agency Housing Authority and Successor Housing Agency Special Meeting of Wednesday, July 31st of 2024. So we will start this meeting at 6 p.m. and just, I'm not going to do the typical reminders that we typically do, but if we have anyone on Zoom, make sure that you raise your hands, use a raise hand feature so we can recognize you. We do have one item on the agenda. So with that, we will go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:01. And if we can get roll call, please.
Mayor Ana Velasquez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Maria Corlejo. Councilmember Fernando Cabrera.
Here.
Councilmembers Fernando Ansaldo Sanchez.
Here.
Councilmember Evarista Banolos.
Here.
Okay, so we'll move on to our next item, which is our Pledge of Allegiance. And if we can all stand, and Moises, can you lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance today?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And will we have Mike, our city attorney, joining us? Is he via Zoom?
Yeah, he's on Zoom right
I was in 2 meetings, but as needed, he said he could be available.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is any additions or modifications to the agenda. So at this time, do we have any additional items of business for the agenda for today? Okay, so seeing none, then we'll move on to a public comment. So at this time, any member of the public may address the city council on items not appearing on the agenda and items of interest to the public that are within the jurisdiction of the council. We do have a limited of 3 minutes for public comment. So at this time, I would just open the public comments and I'll start with those that are in our chambers and then take it out to those that are joining us via Zoom. So any members of the public that wish to make a comment that are in the chambers, and we see none. So, well, Moise is technically also a member of the public, but okay, so let me take it out. If there's none here in our chambers, let me take it out to those that are joining us via Zoom. Okay, and I don't see any either. So we'll close the public comment portion and then we'll move on to our one item of business for today, which is a resolution number 6138, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Soledad, declaring an emergency pursuant to section 20168 of the public contract code, section 3.24.040 of the Soledad Municipal Code, and authorizing emergency repair work to well number 11. We haven't determined yet the contractor who's going to be doing the work. We still have to figure out the scope of work as well. So an estimated amount not to exceed 120,000, and consider calling for implementation of stage 2 water shortage contingency plan, voluntary reductions up to 25% water use. And I will turn this over to our Public Works Director, Mr. Don Wilcox.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thanks for coming in on short notice. Hopefully this will be a quick item. My name is Don Wilcox, Public Works Director, City Engineer for Soledad, and I'll do a quick presentation and then we'll be available for questions along with Moises Arzmendez, our Public Works Water System Manager. He operates the system, manages all the wells and everything day to day. So quick background, Soledad has 5 potable water wells that produce between 500 and 1,200 gallons per minute each. And we have 4 1 million gallon storage tanks. And when everything is working, we have plenty of capacity. In fact, we have 20% excess capacity, which is required by the state. We're required to be able to produce enough water for our average or our maximum day demand, peak hour, fire flows, all that with our best well out of service. So typically in the winter, we'll have a well rehabilitation program every year or every other year, where we take one well down over the winter or spring and rehabilitate it. So that's what we've been doing this current year. We're just about to get it back together and we had 2 other wells go down. So well 6 is our smallest well. It pumps 500 or 600 gallons per minute. It developed a vibration and Mo can go into more details on that. So it's been down since April. The good news is we got it back running today. So it's back in service, but it does have a vibration still. So if it'll get us through the weekend, I think that'll help a lot. And then well 11, I think it was Tuesday morning, quit working. That's one of our major workhorses. So we had well 10 down for service. That one should be back up by Monday. Well 6 went down a couple months ago and we've been troubleshooting that. It still has a vibration. And then well 11 went down yesterday. So with 3 out of our 5 wells down, it's tough to keep our reservoirs full. Our reservoirs are designed to have adequate storage for this community. Roughly 1/3 of it is daily operational storage. So as the peak hour comes along and people use a lot of water, they'll go down about 1/3 and then overnight fill back up. The other 2/3, 1/3 is for fire flows. If we have a major fire, we could use up to 1/3 of our stored water. And then the final 1/3 is for emergency. If power goes out, main breaks, things like that. We do have generators at 4 of our 5 wells, so if power goes out, it shouldn't be an issue, but sometimes generators don't start, things like that, or if we have, like we've had in the past, 3 main breaks in one day, we could use that 1/3. So the concern is, as of this morning, typically we're able to fill our tanks full every night, but as of this morning, what was it yesterday? No, this morning, we knew with like 2 of our 5 wells in service, we wouldn't be able to fill the tanks. And this morning they were about 70% full, 70 to 75% full. So that's one day without adequate well. Tomorrow will be the tell. If we're below 70%, that means we're losing ground. And if we went through the weekend like that, it might be pretty serious. Fortunately, we got well number 6 up, so I'm anticipating we'll be more than 70% full tomorrow, hopefully 80 or 90%, maybe even 100. The prognosis for the well repairs, as I mentioned, well 6 is back in service, but it does have a slight vibration. That could work itself out, but we believe that it'll last at least until well 10 or 11 is back online, and then we can further troubleshoot it. So the reason for the urgency for the meeting is to proceed with the repairs to well 11. It, like I say, it went out Tuesday. We have an initial quote. We get 2 rough quotes to pull it and assess it, one for 7,000, one for 13,000. So we believe the vendor with the lower quote will be on site tomorrow or this week anyway. And then a rough quote, so let me back up. So out of our 5 wells, 4 of them, the motor is above ground and the pump's below ground. This well 11 that just broke, everything's below ground. It's a large, several hundred horsepower motor. So above ground, it was too noisy. Initially, it was installed with the motor above ground and the pump below ground, but it's right in between houses. So it was converted to an underground pump. The problem with that, or the good thing is it's quiet. The problem is if anything goes wrong with it, it's 700 feet below ground. It's not easy to troubleshoot. So we got a quote. We'll get it pulled out and assessed. And then the repairs are roughly between 50 and 60,000. But that's just not knowing, just if the pump needs replaced and nothing else. A lot of times when we pull a pump, it needs more things. A whole new wire system would be expensive, things like that. But the good news is we'll get it pulled apart and assessed quickly. The pumps aren't readily available, so that might take anywhere from a month or more to get well 11 back. Typically August and September are our highest demand months for water. So we want to be able to tell the contractor to proceed immediately as soon as they pull it and assess it, so that worst case, we still have other wells go down. We're not waiting any extra time for well 11 to be put back in service. So that's the request or the recommendation from staff is to award to the pump company, yet to be determined. It's typically there's Salinas Pump or Maduro Brothers. The award to pull and repair the pump. So it's not a typical procurement process to not bid out repairs for equipment like this. For one thing, you don't know if you're getting the best price. Wells are kind of an exception because pretty much all the business in this area is emergency business between the farmers and the cities. We all pretty much have, when a well goes out, we need it repaired quickly. So the pump companies have a reputation of giving fair prices in an emergency situation. They even go so far as to, yeah, they respond to the one of the biggest, the biggest need. Farmers completely down, his crops are gonna be lost. That has a priority over somebody that wants their well maintained. A city with potential water shortage, that gets priority over, you know, another maintenance project. But they all, both pump companies have always given us great pricing, even though it's a sole source situation. So having said that, I believe there'll probably be a lot of questions, and between Moises and I, we can answer your questions. And again, staff recommends proceeding with the repairs of well 11 in a price not to exceed $60,000. If we get more information, get it pulled by next Wednesday, either way, we'll give you an update. We'll make a new recommendation if the cost exceeds what you approved tonight. We'll make a recommendation on the 7th for anything different.
Okay.
So, yeah. Answer any questions?
Thank you, Don. And I just to be clear, because I think on the resolution, we have 3 different items that we're tasked with, unless there's any amendments to that, but it was the action requested on the resolution is to declare an emergency, authorize emergency repairs, and then consider calling for implementation of a stage 2 water conservation up to 25%. So are those still through the 3 recommendations for this meeting?
Yes, as per our water shortage contingency plan, anytime we don't have the full capability of our water system, we should consider enacting a stage of our water shortage contingency plan. Stage 1, we're kind of always in, it's voluntary. Don't wash your car without a hose nozzle, don't let any water run into the street, just basically don't waste water. And that has a roughly 10% reduction in water. Stage 2 is a voluntary 25% reduction. If people can stop irrigating their grass mostly, that will really help. In fact, the Soledad City Parks, we had to shut off all the water to those. Chief recommended or reminded us to do that. And then further on down, if you need above 50% conservation, we believe the 25% would help tremendously. In a worst case, like I mentioned, well 6 is up and running, but it's vibrating. If it goes back down, it's gonna be a rough making it through the weekend and keeping adequate storage. But that's up to council to invoke that request. I mean, again, it's a voluntary 25% is the stage that staff's recommending.
Thank you for that clarity. Okay, so I'll bring it then to council for any questions before we move forward with a motion. So I will start with Councilwoman Bañuelos. Do you have any questions?
A comment and then a question. Thank you for the email for just giving the whole detail with them, because it's giving me a breakdown on the wells. Just a quick question. This usually, the last repair was back in 2013? Let me see.
So we've had emergency council, requested council for emergency procurement on wells 4 times, including this one since 2011.
2011. Okay. So, I mean, it's just a matter of just, just keeping the maintenance, and something unexpected is gonna happen. So of course we have to, repair and replace, right?
Yes,
Okay.
wells run 24/7, I mean, or could be needed 24/7, so throughout the years, if they have a 5-year lifespan without being pulled, that's a long time, so that's kind of our guideline. Every 5 years, since we have 5 wells, one.
Mhm.
Sometimes that works, we fell behind from 2019 to 2021, I don't think we did any repairs. So we're kind of catching up and we were doing well 10 this year when of all 2 other wells went down.
And I appreciate, just the announcement that, we have posted on social media in regards to the water. So I just want to kind of reiterate and say vocally that, you know, we're gonna try to get it done, you know. No other comments.
You never know what you prevented, so if
Right.
the community can help conserve,
Mhm,
maybe that's why we were at 70% this morning instead of 60%.
okay.
Okay, thank you. So I will turn it over to Councilman Santos.
Yeah, kind of on, Councilwoman Renuelos's point, my comments, have to do with the press release. I'm just wondering if there is a set process for those press releases, because I think it was, sent out, but we didn't receive a copy until this morning. And because we are kind of more public facing and we get a lot of questions from our constituents, I'm wondering why we didn't receive it around the same time it was posted or even beforehand.
So that was a definite mistake or an oversight. We wanted to get the word out. We're scrambling to figure out, okay, how are we gonna make it through the night? Who can we call to get it repaired? We need the public's help. Council definitely should have been involved. It was a rough day. We had a lot of people away at training all day yesterday. This came up in the afternoon, so it was an oversight not to follow the normal city policy. For its regular press release, absolutely, council needs to be informed. For an emergency press release, the same. We just sent it out and we're kind of worn out from all the activities of this somewhat water crisis, so we did not think to advise council of the issue. I don't think that happens very often, and I don't think it will happen again, but it was an oversight.
For sure, and I'm only saying because I think we have that in the press release, a recommendation for phase 2. And I'm not quite sure, but I think that we have to go as council in order to push that forward from the contingency plan. So that's why I was wanting to bring this up just in case that we don't, I don't know if we'll get in trouble, right? But just with that.
So I don't know, we'll have to talk with Mike and Megan when she gets back, if that requires an emergency council meeting before we do it, or so we would have a vote, or what that process would be. It was 5:30 last night and I knew we needed to get the word out, so yeah, we need to be ready with proper protocols for doing this in the future.
And then my final comment, I think I let Chief and Darlene know, but I'll reiterate it again. Just the font size of the press release wasn't very accessible. And if you're like on a mobile phone, for example, you can't really read it. So just maybe kind of making it bigger so folks can see it. Another question is, what would outreach efforts look like now to let the public know? Because I know we can post about it on our social medias, but I'm wondering how else we can really get the word out if we do have to move to this voluntary.
There it is. Zeus is our expert in that.
You should think so. Aside from social media, we'll post on our website, our newsletter, but we also have a group of youth that we're set to do canvassing on different projects. So I know Mo, we have some door tags that we can utilize, where we can even print some flyers. So we can definitely go to some of the apartment complexes where even the managers could distribute it for us. Or some of the areas where we know that there are a lot of older folks that might not be on social media, both in English and in Spanish. And we can also tap into our network of stakeholders as well, you know, nonprofit organizations that we worked with in the past. So, you know, if council advises it, we're ready to promote that message quickly.
Thanks. I think those are all of my questions.
And I do understand that when we do something like this, council gets more calls than we do, and not knowing anything about it was awkward. So we'll have a debrief and make sure that kind of situation doesn't happen again.
Thank you,
It
but
was kind
thank
of a
you.
panic.
Yeah, thank you for being proactive though, for sure.
Thank you. Councilmember Cabrera.
The thing that concerns me the most is the other wells. So do we have something in it that to prevent, because we already have 3, right? 3,
3 of them are out of service.
Out of
Out of
service.
our 5, correct.
and we are focusing only on 11. Are we preparing for the others?
Yes.
What are we doing for the other two that are off?
Well, number 6 got back together and started up today. Unfortunately, it still has a vibration, but at least we believe it will get us through the weekend,
Mhm.
when well number 10 will be back up.
So 10 will be back.
So best case, by Monday or so, 4 of the wells will be running again, and the one that just went down will be under repair.
Okay, and you said it will take about a month, depending on that.
Depending on, it's the below ground pump, which
Mhm.
aren't as readily available. If it's the above ground type and the motor went out, we just change it out. They're fairly available and quick, but the below ground one, they're not as common. You want to get the right one, a good one. And it might have to come from back east or something, so it'll take longer.
But we will have those 4 running.
Yes, that's what we're asking council to approve now, is to order that new one as soon as they pull the old one and diagnose it.
Mhm.
So there's no damage, because as we've seen, the 2 that are running now, maybe they're next to good.
Okay.
We do try to rebuild one pump every 2 years. It's in the CIP going forward. We just have some catching up to do.
Thank you, council. And thank you, Don, for the information. I do have a couple of questions, and I'll try to be brief because some have been commented on, but I do want to comment on some of those. So just, I know you mentioned 60,000 in terms of the approval, but in the report, it says 120,000. So is it 60 or is it 120?
So the 120 came from, we researched the last 4 emergency pump repairs we had, and they ranged from 25,000 to 120,000. So we didn't have any, still didn't have any specifics on this one. But based on the model number and everything, the better estimate today was 50 to 60,000.
Okay, so are we modifying that for today? Is there needs to be an amendment, or are we still doing the 120,000, given that if it's 60,000, then there's another 50%, right? There's like contingency to be able to do the necessary repairs. Is that what I'm hearing?
So staff always recommends some contingency. In this case, yeah, we would definitely recommend some. If it's just pulling the pump, replacing the pump and motor and putting it back in, it could be 60. If it's the wire all the way down, or if it's bearings or anything else, it could be more. We can, if council's okay authorizing contingency, we will give a report every council meeting until the project's closed out with the actual costs and the justifications.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I think that would be important, especially when we have, 120, but I know that obviously it was a last minute. And so if we're gonna do, 120,000, I think it's important to be able to have the report, to be able to look at what is the repairs, right? What is the initial evaluation and analysis, and then what is the repair work that needs to be done, and what is the cost? I think that's important for our residents also to know that there is funding that's made available, but we still have to assess some of the costs once we determine what's wrong.
Right.
Correct.
Once they pull the well out, they recommend we redevelop the well, flush it, place some casing. Yeah, it could come to more, but when we do a rehabilitation, the cost is usually higher because we do a lot of extra work. But on an emergency break fix, kind of get it back in service, we would typically just pull it out, replace the bad parts and put it back in. So.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. So I would want to recommend, as part of our recommendation, council, for tonight, is to be able to approve that, but with the reports coming in for every council meeting until the work is completed. So thank you for that. So my other one is, I know that it was mentioned in terms of the assessment of the wells. We just approved the other well, not too long ago, and I've been here longer than some of the council members now, right? And so I know that the wells have been an issue and they're really costly. And so after reviewing the water contingency plan, I know that there's a lot of criteria in terms of some of the analysis and assessments of the well system. So I think after this, not for today's discussion, but I do want to bring it back so we can have an analysis of where we are with the 5 wells that we have, which ones are the ones that we've obviously have had really challenge with a few of them. And is there more work that needs to be done, that it's in the preventative side, so that way we can start looking and doing an analysis, a full analysis of our wells, to be able to determine what we need to do moving forward.
And that's, a recommended approach. I fully support it. Council approved a few months ago to do a complete assessment of our water reclamation facility for the same reasons. We're having things break down all the time. There's better efficiencies, energy efficiency elements, new technology. But for water wells, yeah, we need to really assess the well itself, the mechanical parts, the pump and motor, and the electrical switchgear.
Yeah, and only because we know that they're costly and we don't want to ever get to this point. I think one of my questions to you the last time when we approved this was, will we ever have, this situation? And it was no, right? And then we have this situation. So,
I would
mean,
never say a well
no.
breakdown. I don't have that.
so we never, yeah, I don't think we've ever had that situation. We've had emergency repairs, but not when we have this crisis.
Yes, in 2014 was the one time we also had three wells down.
Okay,
So we had one down for maintenance and two broke down.
okay, good. I wasn't there. I wasn't here back then.
I was here. It was the same thing.
Okay, well, thank
I
you
was
for
just
that.
new.
Thank you. I just think it is just because we've had so much issues that we come back and do a full analysis on all of our well systems.
Thank you.
And then the other issue for me also, and I'm gonna touch on it briefly, but is the press release, only because I know that we have gone through a series of conversations with the council. Several years in terms of the communications, and we have a community engagement department for that reason, right? Because they're supposed to be the support systems to get some of those support for you and the rest of the city staff to be able to do some of those emergency press releases, get it out when it's appropriate to do that. So one, again, I think anything that goes out, especially if it's this kind of an emergency, that the council does need to be notified, because we get those calls and we need to know what to respond and how to respond. And also, I think for the emergency ones, it's really important to say, when are we gonna send them out? Because the public is gonna get anxious and they're gonna start thinking, what is going on? Am I not gonna have water today? What is the city doing? How come these wells are not working? So I think, for me in this context, and after reviewing the water contingency plan, it does specifically talk about the declaration of the emergencies and the levels and what the type of outreach that needs to be done and what type of assessment needs to happen for these type of emergencies. So I really want to make sure that we really, I totally understand because it was in a panic mode, but to be able to ensure that we don't create more panic with our residents until we're ready and we understand what we're going to declare. And part of Section 4.5 of the water contingency plan, it does require the city to make a recommendation at a special meeting or a regular meeting to declare the level of emergency that's going to be implemented. So that is part of our water contingency plan. So I think for me, with that said, is we have a plan and making sure that gets adhered to. But for tonight, I think we heard a little bit about well 6 now is working, although there's some vibration still. Well 10 is scheduled to be back up on Monday. So hopefully. So, I mean, I just want to verify for me, because an emergency is pretty extensive. If we're going to declare an emergency, do we still declare the emergency? Obviously the repairs are important. We need to move forward with them. But is there a declaration of an emergency if we're asking our residents to do voluntary instead of mandatory? I would not feel comfortable today recommending a level of that type of emergency of what we tell our residents in terms of that specific, because it doesn't seem that it's the implementation of stage 2 may be different after you get the review, after you get an assessment. I would recommend that we come back on Wednesday and you have more information. And then if we need to add it to the council report to be able to determine, is it a stage 2 or is it a stage 3 where we have to implement mandatory, water conservation instead of the voluntary?
So the emergency declaration tonight is just to be able to sole source the repair. The emergency isn't to declare necessarily any stage of the water contingency plan. Had well 6 not come up, I would recommend the council declare stage 2 tonight, because if we waited till next Wednesday, our tanks might be completely empty and we'd be out of water. community wasn't helping. So there's more urgency to the water shortage contingency plan than waiting till the next council meeting sometimes. If we're gonna run out of water, we really can't wait if the community can help conserve.
Correct, but if we're gonna run out of water, then we're not asking them, we're not voluntarily requesting them to conserve, we're actually mandating.
Well,
Because
the
we're in that
25%
emergency
would have been plenty with,
for what we have.
for what we have. If we had 4 wells out, definitely we'd have to go to stage 3, 4.
Okay, so for me, I just want to make sure that if the recommendation, at least for me to feel comfortable, to be able to say, how do we move forward as a council? But obviously the declare an emergency is important and also authorize emergency repairs so the well can get completed, but can we defer the implementation of stage 2 until we really know what the issue is? And if we have these 2 other wells that are gonna be up and going, would that be appropriate?
So as of 5:10 tonight, when Mo started at well 6, we're pretty confident we'll make it till through the weekend and have the reservoirs full again. Prior to that, we would have recommended stage 2 tonight.
Okay,
If
so we
well
don't
6 would've
recommend
done.
it.
So no, we don't recommend a water shortage contingency plan. Anything the public wants to do voluntarily, it's a way of life now, conservation, it's a natural resource. But as far as needing it to keep our tanks full, we think we'll be okay with just the 3 wells through the weekend.
Okay, good, thank you, because I know that in the contingency plan, it does have things that we need to, and when we initiate and then when we terminate, so, okay, good, thank you. So, okay, council, those were all my questions, thank you.
Moises, do you have anything to add?
No, it's just, good evening, everybody. So it's a process what we do. I just want to think that you talk to your, the residents that we are doing our part. There is a process to each well, what we do, we maintain. There's always these, when we pull a well, we're always examining the pump, the motor, we sent that out. So stuff takes time. The pump needs to be rebuilt. We examine the shaft. So for example, well 10, that's never been rehabbed, so it was really bad shape. Not only that, we did a pump test as I put on the report there. So there is a process that we do, we try to maintain, we do our best, so we try to use pretty much everybody's knowledge as far as maintaining the wells as much as possible. It's just that sometimes things don't go your way, sometimes you have to order, for example, the VFD well 6. That was on order in February, we didn't get it until almost June. So a lot of these stuff are back ordered and we're waiting, we're trying to get this going. But there is a process that we do, and we try to maintain as best as possible. Inspections, we do every 3 years, pump efficiency testing, see how the pump is not running and things that come along with it. So we are doing our best as far as maintaining. But every now and then, we just need a little bit of help as far as letting your residents know that, can just water a little bit less when we ask for it, because it does help us out as far as running the wells and keep maintaining what the demand is, so. That's the only thing I can say as far as that we are doing our part the best we can, so.
In your normal operation, you and your staff visit every well and every tank every day, right?
Yeah, so every day we go there, we check the system every day. And we have to do that by the water board. And then they come and do our inspections, so we have a lot of other inspections they ask for. We document, give them to them, and then they'll come back and they'll give us some recommendation and we follow on top of that. So, for example, any of the wells are down, we have to notify the water board. And then to get the well back up, there's a process to get that up again. So you have to, disinfect, you gotta flush, you gotta take the samples, you gotta take 2 samples. When that gets back, if it's one sample comes back positive, then we gotta re-disinfect, flush again. So it's a process. So once we get the results back, we send out to the water board, they give us approval to put it into the distribution system. So there is a process, but sometimes things take a little bit longer than expected. We just got caught in the middle there, so.
Thank you, Moises, and thank you for all your work that you do. We know it's a process, and the shortage of, supplies hasn't helped, right? Because I know that you guys been working on this well. So I just to reiterate, thank you for reiterating that to our residents. And for me, it's, you know, we have a water contingency plan and I was glad that you sent it to us and that we were able to read it because all the details are in there as well in terms of how we proceed with an emergency. But also for our residents, just to clarify, we will be declaring an emergency if the council does the motion, but that doesn't mean that we're gonna run out of water. So people are gonna have water. So just in terms of some of the anxieties that we've already heard, and we're not running out of water. There is, you know, the wells that one of them is back up, and it'll be monitored and that we will continue to monitor. But there is a plan in place so that way the wells, even if at 11, it's gonna take a little bit longer, that the other two are being worked on and hopefully will be back by Monday and we'll be okay. So for right now, just for the public, you won't lose your water.
Can I make a comment? Also, a little bit on that, we're all on social media, right? So we see some of the comments that are made on our city page. And with that note, I do wanna ask, if possible, staff that run that account, maybe to have some sort of, not a press release, but like what's going on and just reiterating that that we're not yet out of water. And also that there's steps that we need to take before we take action, because I think folks will say like, well, we're paying all these taxes, we're doing this and that, what is going on? Are you guys doing your job? And it's like, we are, but everything has to follow a process. And I don't know if our community needs that. And I think sometimes we really do need to see that transparency. So it would be nice to kind of be able to reiterate that online and for it to be shareable so that we can share it as well, and it makes it a lot easier. But yeah.
Okay, so with that, council, any final comments before we go into a motion?
Can I add to what Mayor Velasquez and Councilmember Alexander was saying about social media? I mean, we're hearing it right now, and you know, just to be transparent, you know, I can be that face, I don't know, to kind of share that information with the public because, you know, I'm involved with the community. So that way I'm part of the council, so I want to make sure that everyone knows that we're not gonna run out of water, you know, and then we're okay. And then as she mentioned, you know, it's the anxiety and what's gonna happen. But I just want to make sure that, you know, if Jesus wants to, you know, use me, I'm more than happy to do it on kind of like an interview quote unquote process. So that way you guys know, because you guys are the professionals in what's gonna happen with the water. So.
That'd be good, Councilmember. So yeah, if y'all can stay after this, Don and I can type up the script and then maybe we can shoot a quick video. Won't take more than half an hour. Either one of you or more of you, and then we can just.
Yeah, so I just be caution of that because I know we have the official page for the city and I think we've gone through these communication issues in the past because we've had a lot of miscommunication. And so some of the policies that we're working on and that we've discussed in the past is that anything that we want to share, council, especially in these type of policies that are related to city and especially in this emergency situation, because we've had it before with the floods, we've had it before with COVID. And so I think to avoid that is for us, it's best to share what the city is sharing. So if there could be a statement made on our city page official, and I would think that it would be most beneficial instead of it coming from us to come from our public works department to be able to say, you know, this is what happened. Here's what we're doing. And, you know, we're not running out of water. We're working on this. This is how we're mitigating it. And we'll continue to keep the community updated. That way we're not, you know, I'm not the expert. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. And so that way, whatever is being said is really factual and just to the point. I think that's my recommendation to avoid any miscommunications. But yes, to continue this weekend, I think it's going to be important to continue any updates that you may have to update our public about where we're at. Okay, so with that.
I'll motion to approve resolution number 6138 with the following recommendations: to have reports every council meeting until it is fully fixed, and not recommend the implementation of stage 2 water shortage contingency plan.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. We have a first and a second. we don't need roll call, right? No, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, it passes on a 4 to, is it 4?
4,
4-0.
0,
4
1.
with one, absence, thank you.
Which
With
means
one
a 4 out of 5 requirement.
Which means out of the 4 out of 5, and then just can I make a comment in terms of the communications? Can we also have that message delivered in Spanish? So that way we have the English and the Spanish version, so that way it's clear to our public.
And I honestly don't know if we did that on last night's either. I know the chief informed me that he didn't receive a copy.
Yeah.
Neither did council, and
Okay, so with that, council, if there's no further items of business, then we will move forward to adjourn this meeting at 6:41.